Islam is a religion of peace, and I've always believed Islam is a religion of peace. And I know that I'm right because, I read the British media and I watch the news, and it always tells me how peaceful Islam is. And I'm not going to lie about it. Islam is a very peaceful religion. In fact, it is the religion of peace. It's the most peaceful religion in the world. But despite its peaceful nature, Islamophobia is growing fast in the UK and it's spreading. And despite how peaceful Islam actually is, Islam is being attacked by members of the far right, and this is just because the far right are intolerant and racist. It's as simple as that. And I know I've heard people from the far right that say that Islam is the very definition of tolerance, of intolerance and racist. I mean, when you just look at the way homosexuals are treated in certain Islamic states, it's punishable by death. The way that Christians are persecuted and the way that Jews are persecuted, and really anybody that isn't Muslim is persecuted in an Islamic state. But, we must respect their culture and their religion, and if they want to bring it over to their new home, which is England, then, we should celebrate that and we should join in with the celebrations, the Islamic celebrations. It's a brilliant religion, and it is, like I say, a religion of peace. And you got these people on the far right who say it's nothing more than, the psychotic ramblings of an absolute psychotic murderer, in Muhammad, whose wife was only 6 years old, even though he was in his 50s. But, I think that's harsh. And to be honest, I think if people don't stop speaking like that about Islam, I really do believe that the only thing that we can do is introduce blasphemy laws. I really do believe that that would be the only thing that we can do if people do not conform to Islam, and people have got to admit that Islam is tolerant. It is a tolerant religion, and if people do refuse to admit that, then to be honest, stone them to death. You know what I mean? They'll see how tolerant it is when they've got stones bouncing off the skulls. You know what I mean? That'll teach them not to criticise religion and not to be intolerant. At the end of the day, you should respect every religion. Even if that religion doesn't respect you, you should still respect the religion at the end of the day. But like I say, in my opinion, we've got to do something about people attacking and criticising Islam all the time now. In my opinion, like, the only thing I can really think of is that we start punishing criticism of Islam. Because, if you're not intolerant and you don't criticise Islam, then you're not going to find yourself in any trouble. And I've been listening to Muslim scholars and everything, and they're very knowledgeable men, and they know a lot. And, and I've heard them say that Sharia law will actually create a beautiful society if people follow it correctly, and I do believe it would. It'll definitely get rid of a lot of the evils that go in the modern world, because people would be terrified to do anything wrong because of the fear of actually being judged by a brainwashing religion like Islam. But, some might argue that if you like Sharia law that much, then, you should just go and fuck off back to the country that you come from that already practiced it. But I don't believe that. I mean, I think that's very intolerant. And that sort of attitude is rude and it's problematic. To be honest, I find that very problematic.